So basically, I did another film before called Shape, and that whole thing was based upon only the physical aspect of getting rid of. I use my fat like Michelangelo used marble, and that principle was that underneath all of our bad habits that mutilate our bodies and misshape us is our beautiful aesthetic. So it was more about subtraction in society. It's all about, you know, consuming and pouring stuff on top of yourself until you basically disappear and all you are is your products. So I kind of reached a time in my life where I was like constantly on this white knuckle ride and at the disposal of PTSD and bipolar. So it was like if anything triggered a memory of my abusive childhood, my adult body would be controlled by that memory from the child's perspective, which is fear, anger. That child was angry but couldn't do anything about it. But now that part of me uses this adult body to reassert itself. And all I learned about asserting yourself a lot of the time when I was growing up was violence. And the only place to have safety was to put somebody else down and make somebody else small and invalidate somebody else so I could feel comfortable. And you're only really capable of doing that without really having a conscience about it if you're a complete narcissist. But I'm not. So I didn't like these kind of Tourette-like tools that I had. I didn't like what it was doing to people. So I wanted to find other ways to be comfortable. But what happened was I've kind of had a hunch that because I'm perpetually doing art and perpetually involved in fitness or messing with my diet or fasting or studying a new type of spiritualism or, you know, like totally burying myself in the stuff and all of that, you know what I mean? So I knew that if I stopped the distractions, what I was trying to distract myself from would jump up and confront me. And it did. And to explain, the normal person has different emotions like happiness, sadness, loneliness, and all these type of things. And it's fueled gently. With bipolar, you've got like turbo type, jet propelled fuel. So if like the emotions are the sails, the bipolar is like force gales underneath every single emotion. So I was confronted with the loneliness, the anger started to surface because it was like these are undealt with issues. Fear of when everything was quiet, something was about to happen, so quiet was the precursor. Because as a child, my mother would go from being completely quiet and soon to be going about her business to fits of rage, and then I would get blunt instruments opening up my skull, like most of the scars on my skull and stuff like that are from my mother, and drowned in the bath. Like cold baths were set for me and I was couldn't breathe, and then she would burst into the room and put me under the water and put pillows on my face and all that type of stuff, because didn't tidy my room or got up to some sort of mischief, you know. I was inquisitive as a child. It was like, does plastic burn? You know, stuff like that. So I caught a lot of beatings for that. So now in adult life, I never know what's going to trigger me, because a lot of it I buried or distracted myself from. But when I'm going about with an acute sense of justice, so if somebody bumps into me, something in me is like, you need to say sorry, you know. And then, you know, growing up in poor areas, I was bullied a lot. And so people were constantly testing you. Those echoes also in my system. So if somebody did something that was unjust to me, I would expect an apology, and if I didn't get an apology, I was like, oh, you're testing me to weaken me, and then something's going to happen. That was the subconscious mind. And then I would behave and basically go, are you safe? And make the person safe until I see fear in them, or I would relieve them of their senses so that I was safe. I always had this saying, it's like a pit bull will kill every other dog in the yard so it can go to sleep. And that was kind of like I was left with that. So I didn't want to have that. So I decided to stop everything and let all of these emotions come up and try to confront them. And then I realized that I couldn't add to those stresses. So life itself was stressful enough. If I had detection in my own body that I had more stresses, that I wasn't well, I wasn't healthy, that would just make me even more fearful. So first of all, I had to kind of turn it down a little bit by being really healthy. So taking care of my hygiene, giving myself no physiological issues, trying to get enough sleep, and all these type of things will give me the strength then to go in life and make me less high alert, and it will just bring it down a bit. So I'm not adding to that. I walk with the fear, but not adding more to it. And then my process now to go through the therapy of, if I bring up these memories, then before the chemicals get released to my body, so I can't finish dealing with the issue and put it in its place, I'm already reacting, and the brain is not intellectual anymore. It just wants to run or fight. So I'm studying different methods, like Salah, connecting to peace, and EDMR, I think it's called, therapy, which is to keep the body from secreting adrenaline and cortisol, so that you get time to go through it with the therapist to say, right, even though you might be abandoned in a relationship, or a person will leave you in a relationship, a friend may leave, go to another country, or you fall out with somebody, that person doesn't speak to you anymore. That abandonment doesn't mean you're going to die, because when I was 14 days old, I was abandoned by my mother. So I think the memory of that child screaming for its mother at 14 days in a bush, in its diaper, in a park, on the cold soil, in April. And then you can imagine the rage, all the different emotions come in that child, because there was no parent to come and pick it up. And I think when there's loss of relationships and stuff like that, the feeling that happens, and the feeling that comes up in me is that I'm going to die. So then I have to educate the adult me that you're not going to die. So I can put that emotion in its place. You know, and then I was stabbed multiple times on the street. So it's like, if there's a male that's aggressive with me, I immediately want to attack them before they can pull anything out. That person has got nothing, you know what I mean? But I regard human beings as highly dangerous. My mother tried to kill me. I think human beings, potentially, if they're pissed off, can jump to murder. So then I react to it in a very extreme manner. So if somebody's having a disagreement, it's just a disagreement. When I have a disagreement, it can lead to the person pulling something and trying to take my life. So that I go here immediately. I have to get that into place. So part of it is to create, but in order for me to be motivated to do that therapy, I have to have a reason. And the reason is that I want to have a life. But therefore I have to create a life and introduce it to my heart and my liver and my kidneys, and create and have my internal organs reacting to the lifestyle that I've got, that will create an ambience so that the internal part of me will say, I like it here. I like it here. So let's preserve life and let's carry on. So that's the process that I'm doing now, purifying, moving lymph, getting rid of bad blood, all these methods that I'm using in order to create the reason to deal with my issues. I thought of this kind of like analogy or symbolism the other day about the rainforest, and the rainforest is kind of raped by everybody that wants to do alternative medicine. And it's like, we live our lives, we create these deficits in our lives, and then it's like, okay, we're going to go over there and just keep taking medicine. Well, if you got rid of your deficits, you could leave the rainforest alone, and instead of just using all of its beauty for medicine, you can enjoy its beauty. So what I thought in my head was like, I don't want to go in the rainforest and keep taking stuff because of my depravities. I want to walk through the rainforest and look at those medicinal plants that are beautiful and leave them there. So when I believe that I'm in a stable place, I should visualize a rainforest or a place with a lot of medicinal medicines and stuff like that. And I don't stop to pick anything. I walk straight through it. I enjoy everything and come out the other side, and nature is not taxed by me. And another thing that I discovered, even though I was using herbs and all of these type of things, I realized that it was a mistake because I wasn't looking after my health. So I was exhausting my adrenal glands and stuff like this. So I'm taking a wounded body and essentially beating it with a stick while it's sick and forcing it to work. And all that happened with that is that I crashed because eventually I had nothing left. So I discovered that when you want to take things like adaptogens and matcha and things to stimulate yourself, your base should be healthy. Because if you're unhealthy, then you're taking a tired body that should be rested and you keep jump starting it and making it work. And eventually you're going to have atrophy. All your glands are going to shrink and decay because you're constantly using them. So life force is a very big thing. If I have life force, I have potential to be artistic. I have potential to enjoy life. So another thing I found out about in this journey is to preserve life force. So I don't eat dead food or food that I have to use energy from my body to digest. So I try to use food and process it as little as possible so it's highly enzymic, so it digests for me. And there's a way that I eat it with what and stuff like that, so that it doesn't draw anything from me, it gives me something, so it digests itself. You know what I mean? And then the more life force I have is the less stress I have in the now. And then the only stress I have to deal with is the trauma of the past. So I deal with that with strength rather than going into that crippled and then finding out that it's a struggle, which will only make me more depressed. So it's building myself up to deal with the issues. Area of influence, deal with the area of concern. So yeah, don't stimulate a sick body. Be healthy, and then add some stimulus to it just to create a little bit more vibe if you need it even. You know, and I also had a habit of, because I was weak and didn't know how to deal with my issues, it was very easy to pass the buck. So it was like everybody else was making me miserable. But, you know, we are all devastated in some way. You know what I mean? Like, you know, if you eat vegetables or fruits and all of this, it's coming from soils that have been raped and not been looked after. The mineral content is low, so there's a lot of calories, but a lot of malnutrition. You know what I mean? So everybody is dealing with existence issues. So everybody that I'm going to deal with is going to have a problem, and those problems may be misconstrued by me as potential danger, and then I react to that. And then it's like, you're making me triggered. No, nobody's making me triggered. It's my responsibility to be able to control my emotions no matter what the external factors are. That's taking responsibility, having the ability to respond in a healthy manner. It's my job. You know what I mean? How I cope with the world is my job. What other people do, they should have space to do that. People grow and they go through their issues in all different ways. How I respond to that is where my peace will come. Because relying on somebody else to tap dance around you and make it palatable for you, you're throwing a dice. People have got their own thing. They're not going to have the energy for that. Who's going to have the energy for that? Who's going to have the dedication for that? Who's going to be with you from the minute you wake up till you go to sleep? You. So rely on you. Educate you. That's your best friend. Give it the tools to be the greatest friend you ever met. People will come and go. People die, people live. The only constant is your own consciousness. Fortify it and amplify it.